This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Businessweek Daily with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec, live on Bloomberg Radio, television, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
And a very good afternoon. Happy Friday, everybody. Yes, indeed. Bloomberg Businessweek Daily. Carol Massar, Tim Stenovec, live here at Bloomberg headquarters. It is, what a week. Friday, September 26th.
Yeah, the week, just so you know, Carol, the week's not over.
No, I know.
We're still getting headlines, too.
We are.
The latest, Sinclair is going to put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air tonight. The Wall Street Journal reporting that news. You'll recall that even after ABC brought him back earlier this week, there were still a couple large owners of stations, Nexstar and Sinclair, that had not put him back on. The Journal reporting that Sinclair putting Kimmel back on the air tonight.
All right, good to know. I'm just taking a quick check on Disney, just a hair higher, just trying to see if there's any reaction out of the owner of the ABC TV network. All right, folks, back to the markets we go. Stocks on track potentially for their first down week after we've seen 3 weeks of gains. Although I should point out that we are definitely off our worst levels of the session. We're seeing some broad-based buying on this Friday. This is following an inflation print that kind of gives the Fed some breathing room.
Okay, well, we're going to check in on the U.S. economy as we remain data dependent. I've heard that phrase before. Michael McKee is going to be joining us in just a few minutes, not from New York, but from Washington, D.C., where he's been for a few days.
He's always on the road, man. All right, looking forward to it. He did a really important interview earlier today. Hey, we're also going to check in with the CEO of 1-800-Flowers.com on the cost of goods, labor, and so much more. Plus, we're going to get into the U.S. Justice Department. Are they allowed to do a president's bidding? We ask our reporter on that.
Also, Jeffrey Epstein's network of support and advice during his, quote, hour of terror. We have got the emails. Our team has been going through them. Max Abelson is going to be joining us a little later this hour.
Speaking of going through something, our Chris Rovzar actually donned the electric stimulation bodysuit. So we're going to find out exactly what that was all about. And we've got the owner of the company that makes it joining us. That's happening
we
at 2:40.
We got a little bit of everything on the program today. We really do.
That's Bloomberg Businessweek Daily in a nutshell. All right, let's get a check on the trade on this Friday. For a check on that and your top business stories, here's Alexis Christopher. She is in for Charlie Pellet. Hey.
Hey, guys. Happy Friday to you. We check the markets all day long here at Bloomberg. And right now, it looks like stocks are snapping a 3-day losing streak after the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge grew just slightly last month, keeping the Fed on track to cut rates 2 more times this year. The Dow Jones Industrial Average near its best level of the session, up 343. The S&P 500 up 34. We've got the NASDAQ climbing nearly 78. Yields are mixed. The 10-year yield at 4.18%, the 2-year at 3.64%. We've got WTI crude up nearly 1% now at $65.58 a barrel, and gold sitting at $37.82 an ounce. Boeing, by the way, leading the advance for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, up about 4% now after the FAA said the aircraft maker will be able to sign off on some of its 737 MAX and 787 Dreamliner planes before they're handed over to customers. Proof here that Boeing is winning confidence from regulators after years of safety and manufacturing crises. A University of Michigan survey finds consumer sentiment fell in September to a 4-month low on concerns about higher prices and a weakening job market. And Bloomberg is reporting that TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance will likely get about half the profit from the platform's U.S. operation, even after it sells a majority ownership to American investors, which we know includes Oracle. This is, of course, part of a deal orchestrated by President Trump. Shares of Oracle down about 2 1/3% right now. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Alexis Christoforous. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Back over to Carol and Tim.
All right, Alexis, thank you so much. Alexis Christopherus in for Charlie Pellet on the markets today. Hey, listen, folks, we did get a key inflation gauge. It came out earlier this morning. It grew at a slower pace last month. We also got some data on a resilient U.S. consumer. We also saw incomes growing, and yet U.S. consumer sentiment fell in the month of September to a 4-month low on growing concerns about the impact of high prices on personal finances. Richmond Fed President Thomas Barkin spoke with Bloomberg TV and Radio international economics correspondent and policy correspondent Michael McKee before this morning's batch of U.S. economic reports, and he talked about the Fed's dual mandate and keeping an eye on all the data as it continues to come in.
It's a low hiring environment. but the labor supply is also short. And you have to be very attentive to that balance because it could get out of balance, right? Similarly, on the inflation side, you do have these cost pressures and 4.5 years of inflation over target. On the other hand, you're not seeing that show up in spikes in inflation in the real-time numbers. We are seeing what seems to be a productivity boom. And so I think you have to be very attentive to how little we know about how each of our mandate variables is going to play out. And so, I feel like very adaptive is the way to think about it, and that's part of why I'm not being prescriptive into, it's this many cuts over this period of time, because I think we're going to see and learn a lot as we go here.
Adaptive and attentive sounds like data dependent. That is Richmond Fed President Thomas Barkin earlier this morning on Bloomberg with Bloomberg TV and Radio international economics and policy correspondent Michael McKee. Mike joining us from D.C. along with Elizabeth Renter, senior economist at the personal finance company Nerdwallet. We'll get to her in just a moment. But Mike, I do want to start with you. This morning's data, drop of U.S. data, and what you heard from Fed President Barkin, does it all kind of mesh with what we got in the latest Fed decision and commentary?
Maybe not. And that's the situation that Tom was describing is we came out of the Fed meeting thinking that they were going to do a rate cut in October, and there was a good chance of another one in December. And then over the last 4 or 5 days, we've gotten a number of data points that suggest that the economy may be rebounding from a summer low, maybe stronger than we thought. Second quarter growth was revised up, and today we got better than expected spending numbers from consumers. So at this point, it's really hard to say what's going to happen. The one thing we know from today's PCE report is that inflation is not going down. It didn't get any worse, but it is still closer to 3% than the Fed's 2% target. So it just kind of means that those who are in the middle for the Fed, they're probably going to be waiting till much closer to October 29th to make any kind of decision.
Mike, is there a shoe to drop when it comes to inflation as a result of tariffs? Because we did have so many companies pull forward goods purchases before tariffs hit. And we just haven't seen it show up. We're going to start hearing from companies in the middle of next month for their latest earnings report, but we're not seeing the spikes in inflation like he was talking about to you.
Well, we have seen some. We've seen prices go up for some goods, and there are expectations that we'll continue to see that. It depends, as you mentioned, on inventories and how fast those are worked down, and then supply chain adjustments. It's very hard to say exactly when things are going to hit, but economists do expect, and the Fed does expect, to see inflation rise over the next couple of months. Then the question is, does it go down again, or does it keep going up because maybe the president is continuing to put on additional tariffs? The one thing that we can probably intuit is that Americans are not happy. The consumer sentiment numbers went down because of inflation. And even though it doesn't have a lot to do with the president's tariffs, gasoline prices have gone up, meat prices have gone up, turkey prices have gone up. They're for different reasons, but when you go to the grocery store, it's all just inflation to you.
Yep. I don't do a lot of the shopping in my house. My husband tends to do it.
You've got people to do that.
No, my people are my husband and my daughter. But man, they brought some steaks, and I was like, how much did they cost? When they told me, I was like, whoa, Elizabeth, come on in on this, because we are continuing to get data points. How does that cross with what we did get from the Fed and your view on where the economy is and what needs to be done in terms of monetary policy?
Well, I think largely what's been said is accurate. You know, the Fed is trying to keep their eye on the ball. We're all trying to keep our eye on the ball, but there's a lot of balls in the air right now, and some of them are flying in completely different directions. So it's really hard to suss out where things are headed. When it comes to inflation, yes, it ticked up just slightly, but it's not showing real acceleration right now. To your point, consumers are feeling a bit of a burn, more than that headline number would have you believe. You know, food inflation rose last month according to today's data, and that's something we all interact with on a weekly, if not daily basis. We see that number, and so that's definitely playing into consumer sentiment. Also, we're more exposed to all of this talk about the economy, right? We're all talking a lot about when inflation is going to pick back up, the impact of tariffs, and so that's in the back of consumers' heads as well. So they anticipate a lot of potentially bad stuff happening. As of yet, we haven't seen it translate into reduced spending from a big picture. Overall, I'd say this week we got some more of those mixed messages. messages, though, right? Consumer spending is strong despite weak sentiment. The economy continues to grow according to the GDP figures. I say if there's some good news out of this week, in addition to the consumer spending, is that the initial claims came down, the unemployment claims. So that's a bright spot, I suppose, on the recent past labor market.
You know, I'm thinking of a conversation that Tim and I had yesterday with the CFO of a firm, right? And we talked to the CEO just a couple of weeks ago, and they're saying they're pretty busy. There's a lot of activity on their platform. We were thinking, well, wait a minute, how does this mesh with maybe a slowdown in consumer, or concerns about the consumer? And our own Stuart Paul kind of weighing in that, well, what's happening is people are buying, but they're buying and taking longer to pay for things. And that's why they're making use of that platform.
Like essentially, if he sees a service such as that being used, then it could be a sign about the way the consumer is feeling. Elizabeth, I want to go to you on next week and the non-farm payrolls print that we're expecting a week from now. We'll be sitting here talking about that number. 50,000 is the number of jobs that economists surveyed by Bloomberg expect to be added to the economy. How is the labor market in your view?
The labor market is hanging in there. I think the big question next week is not only what we're going to see in the jobs data, but if we're going to see the jobs data. I
saw that story, right? If there's a shutdown, the BLS would delay the next U.S. jobs report.
Right. And this is crucial data for monetary policy, as you all know. I mean, ideally, if there is a shutdown, it will be brief, as recent ones have been, and the Fed will still have that data in hand before their next meeting. Regardless of when we get it, I anticipate that data is going to show, weaker job growth as we've seen over the past several months. But I do believe the unemployment rate is going to remain relatively steady. The break-even rate, or the number of jobs we have to add each month in order for the unemployment rate to remain steady, is decreasing. And that's because the labor force is decreasing, right? We know we're not getting as many immigrants right now, and some immigrants that were already here, already working, may be leaving the workforce. The magnitude of that, a little uncertain, but I do believe that's going to help hold that unemployment rate where it is.
Mike, saving 30 seconds for you, because I think we have to bring up Fed Governor Lisa Cook. This case before the Supreme Court. President Trump wants the Supreme Court to, I guess, give him the okay to fire her. She's fighting it as well. Just quickly, what do we know? What might we get in terms of news either today or potentially over the weekend?
Well, a decision could come any time by the court, and they have tended to move quickly in these Trump firing officials cases, except that in this case, there are a lot of amici filings, friends of the court filings, that the justices may want to wade through. And also, we've seen in a couple of controversial cases that some justices want to dissent. And so that takes some time to write. So we don't exactly know when we are going to get this decision. If the court allows her to stay in the job, then we kind of lose the headlines for a year or so while it goes through lower courts. And if they fire her, then, of course, we'll be back here immediately talking with you about what happens next to the Fed.
Right. And we talk about whether or not we have an independent Fed anymore. All right, Mike McKee, thank you so much there in D.C. Bloomberg's Mike McKee, along with Elizabeth Renter, senior economist at Nerdwallet. We're going to stay on the economy to a view from the C-suite when it comes to the cost of goods, the cost of labor, what the consumer is up to. With us right now is Adolfo Villagomez. He is CEO of 1-800-Flowers.com. He joins us in our Bloomberg studio. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
All good. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to have you here. We just talked a lot about inflation, what consumers are up to. What's your perspective on this? What are you seeing? Is things pricey, your supply chain pricey? And I'm just curious about what consumers are up to.
Well, a couple of things. So number one, I think the consumers are being selective. When they see innovation or values, even they are buying ahead of the holidays. Q2 is going to be, well, our Q2, Q4 for the calendar year.
So they're placing orders, you mean on the platform, but don't deliver to, or what?
Yes, we're already selling products baskets ahead. I mean, the best sellers are already selling, and at some point they are going to sold out. So we're seeing some good initial demand. Now, remember, these are higher end products, so we're somewhat protected from inflation in that way. But we're already selling products at this point. We haven't delivered them, but we're already taking orders for the holidays.
But have your costs gone up?
Well,
I mean, I'm thinking about flowers, chocolates, like where they're coming from.
Flowers come from the U.S. We know that.
Correct. So there are some imports, and some of the cost has gone up. Now, we also have a lot of products that are grown in the United States, our pears, peaches. So it's a combination of factors. I think the merchandising organization is doing a great job managing the inputs. You increase prices where you can. You go after units where you can. What the team is working on is how do you grow gross margin dollars. So you play with the assortment structure and try to do the best you can with the consumer.
How economically sensitive is your business? I mean, I imagine if people are feeling good, they're going to buy from you. But if they're feeling a little iffy, they're not going to. You must see that in real time.
We see that in real time. And remember, we have very different business. So I'm going to go to the two extremes. On one side, you have Harry and David, famous for our baskets on the holidays.
Yeah, we'll talk about the pears at some point. But
I mean, I need to bring
everybody
you
knows
next
about
time.
the pears.
They are delicious.
Everybody's gotten a box of them, right?
I mean,
So
they are
good.
delicious.
Yeah.
We all love them. So those are selling, and I think our most loyal customers, the ones that buy every year, we are already seeing the orders. So that is actually going well. Then you go into the other segment or another one of our businesses, personalization mall, which is lower price points, things that are personalized, like thinking of you, your name. There, the customer is a little bit more picky, and the market is a little bit more competitive. So that's where you're seeing the impact of inflation. Our units decline, but as I said, the merchandising organization is trying to balance that. So it all depends on really the need of the product and what is driving the consumer.
So I want to ask you, because I was thinking about your business, and we are Bloomberg, we have a lot of data. Your stock is down about 41% year to date. Nearly 75% of the float is short. So the street's pretty negative on the outlook. You don't have a lot of Wall Street coverage. It's a very small market cap company. Recent earnings showed a fourth quarter adjusted loss of 69 cents a share. Street was expecting about a loss of about half that. When you look at year over year comparisons, net revenues down nearly 7% from the year before. I don't have to tell you. You know the metrics. You were brought in May, so you are working on setting this company for the future. You come from Home Depot. How do you grow the business beyond e-commerce?
So,
which is, I know, an initiative, a major initiative.
I'm happy you ask. It's a multi-year transformation. Initially, it's about stabilizing the EBITDA of the business. My focus is on cash and EBITDA. And I think we're starting to turn the corner. I'm very optimistic about the business. As we do that, you are planting seeds to grow into other channels. We have great products. We want to show these products to the customer wherever they buy. So now we have our assortment in Amazon, Walmart. We are testing physical stores. We are going on Uber Eats, the delivery service providers. We're trying to expand our channels. That is going really well. I'm very optimistic.
Which one's going really well? Really, really well, among those that you just laid out?
I mean, all numbers are actually good because they went from zero to something.
Nothing, right.
So, but it's actually starting to grow. I mean, we have 100,000 SKUs. Actually, the highest challenge is to choose where you start.
Very briefly before you go, is there interest from private equity right now? Market cap of around $300 million seems to be like it could be a target. I talk to investors all the time. There is interest on investing in the company, and they are paying a lot of attention about how the transformation is going. Like private equity investors are interested? Like
private equity, hedge fund, anybody with money that is looking
like taking it private?
I haven't engaged in those discussions.
Okay.
This is right now investment.
But Adolfo, would it have been easier to do the turnaround if you were a private entity?
I don't think so. I think I have all the support of the board and the chairman, and things are going well. So I don't think so.
Stay in touch. Let us know how things are going.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Adolfo Villagomez, he's CEO of 1-800-Flowers.com. Coming up next, the Comey indictment and Jeffrey Epstein's network. That when we continue on this Friday.
It's 2:21 on Wall Street. I'm Alexis Christoforous. Stocks bouncing back from a three-day losing streak, thanks in part to a tame inflation report. The Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge grew just slightly last month, keeping the Fed on track to cut rates 2 more times this year. The Dow Industrials climbing 360 points, the S&P 500 up 31, the Nasdaq up 76. The yield on the 10-year 4.18%, while the 2-year yield is at 3.64. Packer is the biggest winner in the S&P 500 up about 5% after President Trump announced a 25% tariff on imported heavy trucks. The tariff aims to protect U.S. truck makers like Packer from foreign competition. By the way, U.S. truck sales declined last month to a 4-year low. And we're watching shares of drug makers after President Trump promised to slap import taxes of 100% on pharmaceutical drugs unless the companies build manufacturing plants in the U.S. Right now, shares of Eli Lilly up more than 1%. Same for Merck. Pfizer up 0.3%. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Alexis Christoforous. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Alexis, thank you so much. Well, former FBI Director James Comey has been charged with lying to Congress and obstruction related to testimony he gave in 2020, accelerating President Trump's push for legal action against his perceived political enemies. Now, after the indictment, Comey said in a video on Instagram that he is not afraid. His lawyer, too, Tim, has come out with a statement.
Yeah, his lawyer said Jim Comey denies the charges filed in their entirety. We look forward to vindicating him in the courtroom. I want to bring in Bloomberg News Justice Department reporter Chris Strohm. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Chris, a relatively short indictment. What exactly is James Comey alleged to have done?
Well, the process here is highly unusual. The charges are highly unusual. There's 2 charges against Comey. It's for lying and obstructing a congressional proceeding related to testimony he gave in September of 2020, which was just about 5 years ago, which was right up against the statute of limitations for DOJ to go get these charges.
So I got to say, all of us are, I think, doing a deep dive to try and remember I can't even remember what happened on Monday. So to think about what happened in 5 years ago. Although when you start doing it, you're like, oh, yeah.
I think Monday was the Tylenol press conference. Okay?
It was.
That's how I remember.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
So, but Chris, take us back there and what it is that he is charged with lying about.
Yeah. So during the hearing, it was before the Senate Judiciary Committee, he was asked about a situation in which his deputy, Andrew McCabe, had leaked information to the Wall Street Journal about Hillary Clinton. And Comey was asked if he stood by previous testimony he had given that he didn't authorize the leak. And he said he did. Now, the Justice Department is trying to say that Comey wasn't telling the truth because he was involved in authorizing the leak. And it goes back actually to 2016 when there was a dispute between Comey and his deputy, Andrew McCabe, regarding the leak. McCabe had said that Comey approved of the leak after the Wall Street Journal reported on it. And Comey said he had no memory of that. The Justice Department Inspector General looked into this and issued a report that found that Comey was telling the truth and McCabe was lying about it. And so essentially, Comey was reiterating that he had no knowledge of the leak. But the Justice Department is trying to say, well, Andrew McCabe said you did have knowledge of the leak. And so therefore, we are going to charge you with lying. Now, the Justice Department might have some additional information, but this has been well investigated. And to our knowledge, there's no new information that would prove Comey was lying.
So it raises the question, and back to what Patrick Fitzgerald, the lawyer for James Comey, said. He denies the charges filed, and we look forward to vindicating him in the courtroom. Does it make it to a courtroom?
It's hard to know at this point. Comey is going to have an initial appearance on October 9th. I'm sure that his lawyers are going to move to just dismiss the charges before they ever go to trial. Getting charges dismissed is very difficult. So it's probably more likely that they will end up going to trial. I would expect Comey and his lawyers to call for a quick trial because they believe the facts are on their side and that Comey can get acquitted.
What about a history lesson for everybody, a civics lesson for everybody? I mean, do presidential powers extend to something like this and using the Justice Department to maybe go after presidential foes?
Well, this has been one of the raging debates under the Trump administration, both the first Trump administration, but definitely under the second administration. how far do Trump's powers go as president? Now, Trump will say that he controls the Justice Department, that he can order prosecutions, that he is the chief law enforcement officer. Historically, the Justice Department has maintained independence from the White House and from the president. But that's largely based on norms and traditional practices. There's no law or regulation that says the president can't interfere in prosecutions.
Yeah, I guess I would say some presidential historians would also suggest that maybe you Google the Watergate, like at this point, right? Like,
well, that time you had a lot of pushback from Republican senators who made their way to the White House, and we haven't heard that this time around.
Right. So, like, we'll see, right? We'll just have to, I guess, kind of wait and see how this plays out. Interesting story. Another one certainly on our mind. Chris, thank you so much for running through it for us. Chris Strohm, he's Justice Department reporter, joining us from Washington, D.C.
We're certainly watching what will come next of this. In the meantime, we continue to piece together the life of Jeffrey Epstein. Bloomberg News has gone through more than 18,000 emails from Epstein's personal Yahoo account that was obtained by Bloomberg News. That cache revealing, Carol, a sweeping array of details about not just his public life, but his private life as well. Exactly.
We want to get into it. It is today's Bloomberg Big Take. Bloomberg News finance reporter Max Abelson, part of the team who wrote it. He's here in studio. Max, so good to have you here. Another incredible read. It is among our most read stories on the Bloomberg. First of all, step back. We've been covering this, right? These emails. Remind everybody the emails that Bloomberg got access to and what you guys have been going through.
Yeah, that's right. It's been one of the highlights of my 20 years in journalism to be a part of this team with Surya Matu and Jason Leopold and Ava Benny Morris and many others. So, Epstein, who remains so profoundly central to the public imagination and yet such a profound enigma, Bloomberg News obtained, thousands. More than 10,000, more than 18,000 emails. And I want to be clear, these are private emails. These aren't things that have been recycled through, it's not things everyone knows about. This is new stuff. And it's from a private email address. Actually, for example, there was one email where someone says, listen, I need to talk to you about something private. What email would be good? And he writes back and says, this one, to give you a sense of what we're talking about here. And my colleagues, including Harry Wilson and others, did some really remarkable reporting on Peter Mendelsohn, who lost his job as the UK ambassador to the United States.
Exactly.
In the wake of their story. And Ava Benny Morrison and Jason Leopold have done, and others have done great work on Ghislaine Maxwell and really carefully showing that her relationship to Epstein was just much deeper and their partnership was much closer than either had admitted. And what this story, which I wrote with this wonderful team, what this story is about is, in some ways, I hope, not the usual. Epstein is, of course, in some ways a story about sex and sex crimes. But I think what you'll find is that what this story is about is about what I cover. It's really a story about money and a story about power and a story about connections. And that's how we talked about it with our editors, including Lauren Eder.
And it's can I just pop in that there's a bunch of people pictures, and I'll be honest with you, I think when we both look, I didn't recognize most of them.
Well, that's what I think was so notable about this. I mean, there are certainly the names that have been associated with Epstein for years, like Alan Dershowitz, for example. Right. And there's new information, new emails from there, and a conversation that your team had with him about that. But there's also a name that I'd never seen before, Mary Spaeth, somebody who's a crisis strategist. She was director of media relations at one time for the White House under Ronald Reagan.
Yep.
What role did she serve?
Well, thanks for that question, because I think what's special about the piece, and I hope viewers and listeners check it out, I think what makes it a valuable piece of journalism, especially at this moment when Epstein is really in the news and is all of a sudden has gone from being an exclamation point to a real question mark. And there are a lot of questions about what's going to happen now over the next few days and weeks and months with Epstein and his files. What our story is about, and why Mary Spaeth comes up, is that it's about the depth and the breadth of his relationships. And, it is not a story about Republicans versus a story about Democrats. It's a story about powerful people. And it's a story about different kinds of power. It's a story about academics and researchers, people who make it into high elite echelons of the intellectual life. It's about people who offer, like Mary Spaeth offers, a basically strategy for people who are in trouble, crisis strategy, public relations. And it's a story about counselors and lawyers. And to answer your question about Mary, there was a point, believe it or not, where investigators are closing in on Jeffrey Epstein. This is early 2008. You know, he's about to go to jail for the, it's like about a year. It's a little bit longer than a year.
Right.
And after that, he's a free man for a very long time, I think about a decade, until the 2019 charge, sex trafficking. And then he dies. He's found dead in prison or jail right after that. But back in 2008, investigators are circling. Epstein's in trouble. And what do we find in these emails? But these draft apology options, where she sends him 3 different kinds of apologies. One is one's very meek. Talks about his memories of being a kid. It's actually, I found it very deep. Imagine, all of us remember being kids and having to apologize. Second one is very short. It's really terse. The third one, it's the word we use is elegiac, and it is. He cites William James. I'm hoping it's the first Bloomberg News story that calls out William James, 19th century American philosopher. Talks about the hour of terror and the hour of satiety. How about that word? And he talks about the American dream. Talks about the American dream and its substantial rewards. And he says this is a public and heartfelt apology.
I just want to say Spaeth's firm was hired through a lawyer to provide communications options for Mr. Epstein and his legal team. She said in response to questions for the story, she said, quote, "I ultimately terminated the engagement because of my discomfort with it."
That's right. That's right. Thanks for saying that. I think it's really important out of fairness that we add things like that. And she also said, because of confidentiality and privilege, she can't comment further. But, we don't know what was going on here. I want to be clear with our viewers. Right. For all we know, Epstein was really very close to saying sorry. But he did not. He did not in the sense of giving a broad apology, right, certainly to his victims. And I want to be clear, the U.S. Department of Justice says there are more than 1,000 of them. More than 1,000 of them. And Epstein did not give a heartfelt William James quoting apology as far as we know. But our story shows what it could have potentially sounded like if he had.
It's why we say there are so many questions still out there. And you guys, by going through these emails, maybe there's not direct conclusions, but you start to piece together, kind of a little bit more of the life around Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. Max, thank you as always. Max Abelson, he's finance reporter at Bloomberg News. This is The Big Take. Check it out on the Bloomberg.
It is 2:40 on Wall Street. I'm Alexis Christoforous. Stocks bouncing back from a 3-day losing streak, thanks in part to that tame inflation report. The Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge grew just slightly last month, keeping the Fed on track to cut rates 2 more times this year. The Dow now at its best level of the session, up 386 points. The S&P 500 climbing 39. The NASDAQ Composite now up a little better than 100 points. Yields are mixed. The 10-year yield at 4.18%, 2-year at 3.64%. Breaking business news crossing the Bloomberg terminal right now. Electronic Arts reportedly near a roughly $50 billion deal to go private. Shares of Electronic Arts right now up 1.6% on that news. The tech consultancy company Accenture has laid out plans to lay off staff that are not able to reskill on artificial intelligence. That's as Accenture prioritizes its AI efforts. Shares of Accenture up 3.6%. We're also watching shares of furniture makers and retailers after President Trump promised to slap 50% tariffs on kitchen cabinets and bathroom vanities, 30% on upholstered furniture. This would be happening beginning October 1st. Trump writing on his social media site that foreign manufacturers of furniture and cabinetry were flooding the U.S. with their products and that tariffs must be applied for, quote, national security reasons. You see there, Wayfair up better than 1%. Williams-Sonoma Restoration Hardware coming under a little bit of pressure. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Alexis Christoforous. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Alexis, thank you so much. Well, it's the jolt that takes tickles your muscles. And suited up in the Katalyst Gen 4, you might look a bit like one of the Avengers. It's pretty cool. It is all part of looking and feeling your best, as Bloomberg Pursuits editor Chris Rovzar writes about in the new issue of Bloomberg Businessweek, with pursuits devoted to the pursuit of wellness. Here with more is Chris Rovzar, along with Brendan Kennedy, the CEO of MONT. It's the owner of Katalyst, and they both are here in our studio. Welcome, welcome. A great Friday story. First of all, I got to start with you, Chris. How did this come on your radar? I mean, I know you are always kind of the king when it comes to things that you can try to feel better, to look better.
Yeah, I'm a fitness person. I'm a wellness person. I'll try anything once. If you ask me to do a form of exercise with you, I will do it. So I have done everything: solid core, physique 57, Zumba, you name it. I've done it. Hot yoga, hotter yoga. And
something in a chair yoga?
Yes. There was briefly a Pilates studio in Manhattan called Shays 23 because you did all the exercises in a chair.
Okay.
And it was on 23rd Street.
All right.
So at the beginning of the year, I just was thinking about how overwhelming wellness has gotten. There's endless podcasts. The Manosphere podcasts are just like telling you so many different things every week to do. There's businesses where you can spend like $7,000 a month, where you go and you get, go get tested for all this stuff every month, and you get AI to tell you what to eat and what to exercise. It just feels very overwhelming. And I thought, okay, what's the response to that? What is my response to that? I want to cheat. I want a cheat code. I want an easy way out. I want to hack. And so we got the whole Pursuits team together to go out and do research and figure out what are like the hot wellness hacks right now that makes it easier for you. Because at the end of the day, what you really need to do is exercise, you need to sleep, you need to talk to people, and you need to eat well. That's basically all you need to do. So like, what are the things that can sort of hack your way into doing those more easily? And so as I was doing my research, I discovered the Katalyst suit, which is an EMS suit. It's a stim suit like physical therapists use after you get an injury. They kind of zap your muscles with electricity, and it encourages your muscles to work harder. More of it tenses up, and then it heals stronger. And so that technology is now a suit that you can wear, and you can do workouts, and it like supercharges your workouts.
Okay, I know the guy who owns the company is sitting right here, but I'm still going to put you on the spot, Chris, because I see technology like this, and I'm like, does it actually work?
I have to tell you, it actually works.
You're not just saying that because Brendan is sitting here.
You can't see my bulging muscles through my blazer.
But you're serious.
But it really totally works. I did it for 6 months after having a pair of injuries. I had foot surgery. You guys remember I fractured my elbow.
I do.
I was like out of the gym for months. I felt kind of bummed about it. And it really got me back going. You really see results. It helped my posture. I lost weight, gained muscle.
All right, so Brendan, come on in. You are the owner of Katalyst. Talk to us about this device, kind of how it came to be, and tell us a little bit about the business.
Yeah, so I joined EMS about 4 years ago, and I was a little skeptical at first too. My wife had used it about 7 years ago.
EMS is electrical muscle stimulation.
Exactly,
Okay.
and just like a doctor or a physical therapist will put stim on you to heal a muscle, it's the same type of technology, and doctors have been using it for 60 years. If you go to Europe, there are EMS studios where there's thousands of them where people will go in and work out. I went in skeptically and tried it about 4 years ago during COVID, and it's amazing. For me, it compresses time. I can get a 2-hour workout, a workout that would normally take me 2 hours in a gym. I can do it in 20 minutes, and it's a whole body workout. It hits the little muscles in your back that you might miss in the gym or skip a leg day. It's your whole body, 26 pads at once, and it stimulates your muscle just like your brain sends a signal to your muscle to contract. The suit sends the same the same signals, and it hits 90% of your muscles, and so it's amazing, and it works. It's efficient, it's fast, it's safe, and it compresses time for me.
So you were a client.
I was a client.
Then you became an investor, and now you're the owner.
Yes, it's something I'm really passionate about. I use it 3 days a week, so 20 minutes each time, basically an hour a week. That little prep, a little cleanup, but compared to changing and driving to a gym and working out for 2 hours, I can do it in 20 minutes. I can do it at home. I travel with it. It's spectacular.
All right, so what does it cost?
So the suit retails for $3,000. There's an app, and there's trainers on the app. So you pick, I want to focus on strength. I want to focus on cardio.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to focus on my lower legs or my abs. I'm 50 years old. I've worked out in gyms for 40 years. This is the first. I've done Ironman. I've done marathons. I've done every kind of fitness activity you can do. I'm very active. This is the first time I've had abs at 53, right? Like, it's never happened before. And it's all because of the suit. I can turn up the abs and hit those muscles. $3,000, you follow a trainer on the app, and that person leads you through a 20-minute workout.
People might know you from your days in cannabis, medical cannabis specifically. You were one of the co-founders of Tilray. You led the company. It's publicly traded now. You're no longer involved in cannabis. What was the process that got you to buying Katalyst? And talk a little bit about the challenges the company's had before you came on board and what you're trying to do now to get it away from those challenges.
Absolutely. So I think cannabis, I started in cannabis back in 2011. So 14 years ago. And back then, people thought it was crazy, right? Like, what is he doing? He went to Yale. He has an MBA. Why is he going into cannabis? And he's throwing away his whole career. But I could see the future, right? I could see what was going to happen. I knew that country after country was going to legalize, and U.S. states were going to legalize. And so I saw the opportunity. I saw what was going to happen. I see the same thing in EMS. If you go to Europe, there's these studios everywhere with people working out in suits. And I think 5 years from now, everyone in the US will be familiar with EMS. They'll either have a suit or they'll go to a gym and work out in that suit because it's the future of fitness.
Well, Chris, I mean, you do cover so much about wellness and fitness. We talk about it with you all the time. I mean, how do you slot this in? What are you hearing kind of from maybe the industry about maybe, is this kind of a next wave?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, we've done stories about EMS suits before. Plastic surgeons in New York City offer it. There's some startups that offer sort of similar things where you go to a studio. For me, this really fit into my normal system of going to Barry's boot camp. I'm a big Barry's person, and doing my normal weight lifts. And then I added this in 2 or 3 times a week, 20 minutes. And that's where I really supercharged everything else that I did. And especially on a day when, like Brendan said, if you're too busy or you're traveling or whatever, you can just kind of toss it in. And although I have not taken it on a plane before, so I brought it with me. So this is what it looks like.
Is it heavy?
Quite big. It's not really.
So for those listening on radio, Chris is holding up the vest portion, but there's also that sort of, there's another portion.
So it goes all the way down.
Yes,
that's
it
for
goes
your
around your legs and your chest.
Vest and legs.
Okay,
and
vest and legs.
There are armbands that go with it, and you have to get it wet for the stim pads to really work.
But you have to do that with a heart rate monitor too. It's kind of the same thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Very similar.
So, Brent, what do you see as your market? Is it a case of selling directly to consumers? Is it about setting up places like the Peloton model to some extent where you could go and actually get on a Peloton and be at a physical location? I mean, Peloton kind of went back and forth. Like, what's the model in terms of growing this business?
So right now, there are thousands of consumers that own the suit and they work out at their homes or at the office or in their hotel rooms while they're traveling, and they work out with the app. There are also maybe 200 to 300 studios in the U.S. that use a suit. Many of them use the Katalyst suit. And so you can go to an EMS studio if you're mostly in a big city and try it. And so they use the Katalyst suit. And so it's both supplying to studios, and we're seeing more and more of those open, and then also to consumers.
What's the moat that you have here? Because if this is big in Europe, you're doing it here in the U.S., people might catch on, they might see that it's working. Copycats could come in. What separates you? How do you protect the brand?
I think there's 2 moats. I think the first moat is oddly, an EMS suit is regulated like a toaster in Europe, and so manufacturers can just make them and sell them.
Yeah.
Here it's regulated by the FDA, and so this suit is FDA cleared. And so we went through the FDA process in order to sell it to consumers. That's one moat. I think the second moat is the content. There's hundreds of workouts online that you can engage in. The app actually is what sends the impulses to the suit.
That's what zaps you.
And so
the app zaps you.
Yes, and so the app does it.
Wait, can I use this on my family to get them to do other things? Just saying. No, forgive me. Go ahead.
No, I think it's the content and the FDA clearance are really the 2 moats.
What about competition or just the wellness world at large? Like, it feels like, we go through these fads and waves and trends.
Yeah, you don't want this to end up in the same pile as the Thigh Master.
I think that
everybody should have a Thigh Master. No, I'm just kidding. No, but how do you make sure? Like,
I think strength is important no matter what you do, right? And so I use my suit 3 days a week, 20 minutes. I run. So I have cardio. You can, work out on a treadmill wearing the suit. People do that. But I think strength will always be there. Strength will always be important. It fixes your posture. Bone density for a lot of people is really important. People on GLP-1 drugs lose strength. And so this suit helps people of different demographics and ages.
Very quickly, you can work out while you're wearing the suit and also wear the suit independently while you're not working out, or you're always working out while you wear it?
There are people that do freestyle workouts, which means the suit is charging, impulsing, and they're folding laundry or doing the dishes or walking on a treadmill.
I think you and I need these. You still doing it real quickly?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm in.
I got to tell you, I go to a doctor and they say it's all about strength and getting your muscles and building muscle strength. So it totally makes sense. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Brendan Kennedy, Chief Executive Officer of MONT, the owner of Katalyst, joining us here in studio, along with our own Chris Rovzar. He's editor of Bloomberg Pursuits. You can check out and read more about Chris's experience. It was a really fun read. It's in the new issue of Bloomberg Businessweek in the Pursuit section.
I'm in.
I know you are.
Chris, I don't know if this is the type of thing where we share a suit. I don't think it works like that because
it has to be sized to you. But actually, you and I, we could maybe do it. We could try it.
Cool. It's pretty cool.
I love the idea.
Yeah, I'm like you, Chris. I'll try any workout class once.
Can I get one for my face, like to tighten up the muscles?
No,
for
I don't think you would want that.
Speak for yourself, Chris.
It's intense. It buzzes you to your bones.
Does it?
Really you get used to it, but it really is a lot. It can be really
painful.
Are you going to stick with it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to keep doing it. I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll keep you accountable.
Okay. Please do.
I love it. I love it. Chris Rovzar, thank you so much. I'm Carol Massar, along with Tim Stenovec. Let's get to some stocks on the move on this Friday. Bloomberg News equities reporter Alexandra Semenova in the house. Alex, where shall we begin?
We got to start with Apple, guys, because there is a big scoop right now from none other than our own Mark Gurman on this. Apple has developed a ChatGPT-like iPhone app to help test and prepare for a long-anticipated overhaul of Siri. The company's AI division is using the app to evaluate new features for Siri, Apple's voice-powered assistant, of course. That includes testing the ability to search through personal data, such as songs and email, and perform in-app actions. But at this point, it's just going to be Apple employees testing the app, so not accessible yet to people like ourselves.
All right, let's get to Wayfair. This is certainly that and RH we've been talking about a lot today.
Yeah, that is a sector that's been in focus today. Shares of furniture retailer tumbling after President Trump announced that the U.S. will enact new tariffs on imported kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and other home products next week. RH is seeing its stock fall, and it's had a really difficult year given all of the tariff announcements. Its CEO has been a critic of Trump's trade policies. We're also seeing Wayfair fall. In a social media post on Thursday, Trump said that these kinds of imported products have been flooded into the U.S. He said that a 50% tariff will go on cabinets, vanities, and associated products.
And Oracle, it's up 70% so far this year, but today,
today, not so much because that TikTok U.S. deal that it'll be a part of, it's getting a $14 billion valuation that is a lot lower than most people were anticipating. And obviously, investors are disappointed to hear this. That was kind of a rough estimate at this point. J.D. Vance said that this could be a different number, and it'll be at the discretion of the companies that are buying it. That is Oracle. And of course, it's working with Silver Lake management on this. But we'll see. It definitely has been a fantastic year, as you mentioned, for Oracle, up about 75% in 2025. First, it had that earnings report where it really wowed investors with its guidance, and then, of course, being a part of this deal.
It does feel like the last couple of weeks or last month that Oracle just seems so connected to so many kind of upbeat things, and it has certainly propelled that share price higher. Bloomberg News equities reporter Alexandra Semenova. Check out our Stock Movers podcast, 5-minute episodes of the biggest winners and losers in the stock market. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Alex, while you are here, we want to get to one of the most read stories, another one on the Bloomberg, about two well-known names to the Bloomberg audience, Dan Ives and Tom Lee. They are beating the market on a bet in the AI boom. Just, first of all, we do know who they are, but remind everybody and what they're up to.
Yeah, they're getting, a well-deserved victory lap here. Obviously, they are kind of mainstay equity bulls, ever optimistic on the stock market, and obviously that bodes well right now given that stock prices are near all-time highs. Dan Ives is, of course, an analyst at Wedbush Securities. He covers the likes of Tesla. He's a well-known Tesla bull. Tom Lee is over at Fundstrat, providing research for both institutional and retail investors. He was at JP Morgan previously, but then went out into this foray kind of catering to retail clients. And that is a really good strategy for the both of them. They have a massive social media following, and they're attracting something that is really rare in the ETF industry with their ETFs is getting both inflows and outperforming the market.
It's
so there
amazing.
are about 4,200 ETFs in the industry, and it's really rare to attract that kind of capital while also posting solid performance, and they're doing both.
Still more ETFs than individual stocks? Is that where we are?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
So the competition is pretty fierce. Do you need to have a big social media presence to actually get flows if you're not following an index?
Well, it seems like that has been the differentiator for them. I mean, as we've been reporting they've just been reaching new milestones. Like Dan Ives hit $750 million in inflows since launching earlier this year. And then Tom Lee is approaching $3 billion right now, which are just incredible numbers. And, just having a conversation with Dan Ives, he said something really interesting. He said he wanted a way for retail investors and institutions to participate in his AI picks. And he said that even though those companies are, at highs right now, he sees this going on for 3 or 4 more years. He said that the AI party is kind of like being at a party at 10:30 p.m. when it ends at 4 a.m. So
yeah,
we'll see if that continues.
I usually leave at 10. But
You do.
Same.
Didn't Ives come out today too and put that, I think, the street high price target on Tesla?
on Tesla.
Yeah. Fascinating story. Listen, there are two voices, as you we said, very well known to this audience, and fascinating to see their outperformance here. Alex, thank you so much. As we said, this story is among the most read on the Bloomberg terminal by Alexandra Semenova and also Isabel Lee. So be sure and check it out. That's going to do it for us. That was a busy hour.
It was, but we got a busy next couple of hours on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily. We're continuing on radio, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals. Tariffs on branded drug imports and on some furniture. Our Bloomberg News team with what exactly you need to know. Also, the president and CEO of Udemy stops by, talking the role of AI in online learning.
Chris. I want to get a Katalyst Gen 4. Sorry.
Cool.
See you later.
All right, see you later.
Ciao. This is Bloomberg.